Hello, hello, and welcome to The Conversation. Every week on the show, I invite one of the most compelling power players in Washington and beyond in for a chat to find out how they're navigating and shaping this incredible era of American politics. And today, I'm joined by Tom Homan. Homan is Trump's border czar. You'll remember President Trump's biggest campaign promise was immigration enforcement, deportations, locking down the border. Well, Tom Homan is President Trump's go-to guy on all of that. He's been touting how the border is now pretty much secure. So now the next step is that mass deportation campaign. So I really wanted to dig into that because he's just gotten $170 billion from Congress from that big, beautiful bill to ramp up deportations. I wanted to talk to him about what his next target is, which is really sanctuary cities. I wanted to talk to him about those third country deportations, folks getting sent to places like El Salvador and South Sudan, even though they're not from those places. What happens when they get there? The protests that we're seeing in some of these cities, how they're going to try to tamp down democratic resistance. And I wanted to ask him about the MAGA divide, on how the president is trying to thread the needle on some concerns about deporting immigrants who are critical to farms and to hospitality. So much to talk about. Here's my interview with Tom Homan. Mr. Homan, thank you so much for joining the conversation. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So listen, I think a lot of people that don't know your resume intimately might be surprised to learn that you worked under the Obama administration.
Well, I worked under 6 administrations. I started under President Reagan. I've been doing this since 1984. So I worked for 6 different presidents.
So you've seen some stuff.
I've seen a lot. And it's one of the benefits I have. I've seen hundreds of policies come and go. I've seen what worked and what didn't. I saw how each president, what action they took to secure the border and enforce immigration law. President Obama actually gave me a Presidential Rank Award because one year we removed 409,000 people. It was a record for the agency. And that was his first 4 years. Of course, second 4 years, I think he pretty much did a 180 and shut us down. But yeah, I worked for President Obama. I worked for Reagan, Bush, Clinton. I worked for all of them. I did not work for President Biden.
That is a very clear gap in your resume. You were not in the working for an administration during those years. How would you, though, compare Obama to Trump in terms of the work that you're doing?
The first 4 years under Obama, we were leaning forward on immigration enforcement on the interior. Second 4 years, pretty much shut down. Let me be clear. President Trump, his enforcement strategy on the border and the interior is unprecedented. No one had more success than President Trump. I mean, the first 4 years under President Trump 45, we had the most secure border in history of this nation, and Joe Biden took that border and unsecured it on purpose. Trump 47, we blew 45 out of the water. I mean, our success is much better than 45, even though 45 was unprecedented. There's a little bit more work to do. I mean, I think the average day under Biden, there was 1,800 gotaways. Yesterday, there was 18, right? 18 too many.
I think no question what you've done at the actual border in terms of just the huge drop in border crossings is significant and unprecedented. I think the question now is the deportation operation from the interior, right? I mean, Obama did get that moniker, deporter in chief. That was supposed to be kind of an insult from the progressives in his party. I think President Trump would actually love that nickname, but you haven't reached the pace of Obama administration deportations. Are you frustrated by that?
Well, we got to remember how Obama administration counted those numbers. And I knew because I was running enforcement removal operations. They took border patrol apprehensions, handed them to ICE, and ICE did the removal. So ICE claimed the removal. They're double static. And I know because I was there. They wanted to push the numbers and say, okay, border patrol, give all your apprehensions to ICE, and ICE do the process and remove them. Rather than border patrol just turning around and VR them or expedited removal, they were playing the game. Let's give them to ICE, the ICE process room. That way ICE can claim the stat. So the 409,000 removals is a number that I would call a dishonest number as far as me call ICE. Were they really ICE removals? Well, technically, I guess they did the paperwork, but border patrol could remove them right away, but they didn't. So we got to understand that number. It's a play with numbers. But right now, we're facing unprecedented assault on on immigration enforcement, we got more sanctuary cities than ever before. We got more governors and mayors pushing back. And it causes less efficiency. Back in the day, one agent can arrest one criminal alien in jail. But now, since they're releasing them in our most target-rich environments, our biggest cities, LA, Chicago, New York, they're releasing hundreds a day into the street. Now we got to send a whole team, not just one, a whole team to go find somebody that want to be found. So, in a lot of roadblocks, we got all these court injunctions that are stopping us from removing people. So we're swimming uphill, but even though we got all these, roadblocks in front of us, we're getting through it. And again, we got 3 times as many criminals arrested as Biden did. So we're doing well, but we can do much better if we didn't have the sanctuary cities doing everything they can to prevent us from doing this job.
Well, now you have $170 billion for immigration enforcement from this big, beautiful bill. How much does that change what you're going to be able to accomplish? And what are the biggest impacts that the American public should be prepared for?
Well, it's going to give us more resources and more boots on the ground. So when we have to go to these sanctuary cities, we want to send many more agents in sanctuary cities. And the president made it clear 3 weeks ago, we're going to prioritize sanctuary cities. And not because they're blue, it's not a political thing, but because we know we got a problem there. Like the state of Florida. Every sheriff in the state of Florida works for us. So we follow the detainer to jail, they're going to hold them, and one agent go arrest one bad guy. But in New York, we know they're releasing people every day. We know we have a problem there. So we're going to send additional resources to New York to deal. We're looking for people in the community and looking for people at work sites. So this money is going to ramp up immigration enforcement. It's going to ramp up deportations because it's going to buy us more beds to hold people. It's going to buy us more transportation contracts to remove people more efficiently and quicker. It's going to give us more immigration judges so hearings are done quicker. It's also going to hire more ICE attorneys to prosecute these cases quicker.
You talked about sanctuary cities. I mean, a lot of the voters who supported Trump and who support his immigration policies don't live in those cities, and they are more interested in what's going on in their own communities. How do you address those voters' concerns?
Well, I think all you got to do is look at the numbers. Look at the numbers of the immigration policy. It's much higher than Biden. And they're going to see a steady increase as resources come on board. Last week, one day I woke up, we had less than 200 empty beds. 200 empty beds nationwide. We'll fill them in an hour, right? So we're constantly chasing our tail, getting removal flights out to make room for more beds. This big, beautiful bill is going to give us up to 100,000 beds. We're not to wait for beds. So we can go out there and be more aggressive on finding the public safety threats and national security threats. And for those people who are not sanctuary cities, they need to understand that we're throughout every state in this country right now. We got over 1,000 teams on the streets every day. But we got to prioritize the current limited resources on the worst first, and that's what we're doing. New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, they all have crime problems. They all have large illegal alien criminals. So we got to send the resources there to deal with that first. As resources come on, we'll spread out. The 1,000 teams become 2,000 teams. The current 58,000 beds become 100,000 beds. So they're going to see a lot more activity in the very near future.
How many people is the administration on pace to deport this year? And is that meeting expectations, either your own or the White House's?
My expectation is they remove everybody they find as quick as possible and find and arrest as many as possible.
But what's the target? Do you have a target metric in mind?
I don't have a target. I mean, Steve Miller has spoken about 3,000 months, which I think is not impossible to do. I think it's a fair number. I think the number can be higher. People need to understand. I read all these media outlets. 3,000 days is ridiculous. That's so inhumane and so racist. You got to understand. If you did the math, we'd have to arrest over 7,000 a day for the rest of this administration, just to remove those that Biden let in. And we're not even touching the 15 million here before him. I'll rest and I'll feel good when every illegal alien, public safety threat, and national security threat has been arrested and removed from the country. That's when I'll be happy. People ask me all the time, you happy with the numbers? Yeah, I'm happy because the numbers are much higher than what Joe Biden did. Am I satisfied? No, because we got over 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal records walking the streets of this country. We get them off the streets, I'll be happy.
So initially the posture was, focus on criminals, focus on gang members for deportation. Even so, there were a lot of folks, without criminal records that were wrapped up in that. But a lot of the MAGA base wants much broader targeting. How much are you going to expand deportations given these new resources that are coming on? Are you kind of past the idea of just focusing on the criminal element?
Well, the priority is always will be public safety threats and national security threats because they pose the biggest danger, right? So if I'm a police officer and I got someone, that's committing a rape over here, then I got a burglary over here, I want to take the rape first. I said from day one, even though we prioritize public safety threats and national security threats, if you're in the country illegally, you're not off the table. We're looking for criminals and national security threats. They remain the priority. However, we're still looking for those who overstayed their visas. We're still looking for that 600,000. We're still looking for 1.4 million illegal aliens who had due process at great taxpayer expense, were ordered removed by a federal judge, but didn't leave. They became fugitives. We're looking for them. So the aperture has already opened up, but we're not going to lose the focus and priority of public safety threats. That will always be a priority. But like I said, I use an analogy. Look, I may prioritize my family life over my work life. I'm not going to forget about my work life. It's just what you do first. And we'll continue that, that strategy.
So in terms of anyone who is here in the country illegally, whether that's, folks who have committed crimes or people that, came here 10, 20 years ago and are part of the workforce, is the message the same? You either need to leave or we'll take you out?
It's not okay to be in this country illegally. It's not okay to enter this country legally. It is a crime. And, and if you're in the country legally, you need to make it right. I mean, you need to go to CBP Home App and get your arrangements together. It'll leave you eligible to come back under many other legal programs. If you want to come back as a visitor, tourist, or a work visa, or if you have a U.S. citizen child that becomes 21, can petition for you or someday as a relative of your citizen. Leave yourself open to other possibilities, because if we have to formally put through this whole process and get an order of deportation, then seek you out and deport you, there are statutory bars placed against you ever coming back. Anywhere from 5 years to 20 years to never coming back. So do the right thing and do that. And people say, well, doesn't that seem a little, beyond, reason? No, there are millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing their background investigation, paying their fees, becoming part of the greatest nation on earth. They're trying to do things the right way. They're sitting in the back seat while millions of people under Joe Biden cheated the system. You can call it, people call them, well, they're asylum seekers. Technically, yeah, they're seeking asylum. But if you look at immigration court data over the last decade, 9 out of 10 of them will end up with order removal.
Well, there are people who came in under Biden, but there are people that came in under Bush. Folks have been coming into this country illegally for a long time. So,
but nowhere near the rate of Joe Biden. 10.5 million illegal aliens
Mr.
came to the
Homan,
border.
like that have children here who are American citizens. I mean, we haven't gotten to the birthright piece of it yet, and that's a legal issue. But what about folks with families here who who are legal citizens of the United States right now?
If they're in a country illegally and you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. If we want to send a message to the whole world, enter the country illegally, it's a crime, don't worry about it. Show up in court or don't show up in court, get an order removal, don't worry about it. Go have a U.S. citizen child and you're immune. Automatic answer, you're immune. If that's the message we send the whole world, we're never going to solve this problem, which means more people come to the border, more people die making that journey. More women and children get sexually assaulted making that journey. Border Patrol gets overwhelmed, which more fentanyl gets in, more people on terrorist watch the skin. We lose control of the border. The message we need to send to the whole world, there's a right way and wrong way to come to the greatest nation on earth. You need to come the right way. And I said this in the beginning of the administration. If you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're here illegally, that's on you. So when that person gets order removed, they got a choice to make. Parenting 101. Do you want to take the child with you, leave the child here with a relative or the other spouse? Up to you. But we're not going to send the message to the whole world, have a U.S. citizen child, and you're immune from our laws. That's not the way it works.
The idea of removing millions of people from the country, many of whom are, paying taxes, are embedded in the workforce, it is kind of a disruptive proposition. Is this project butting up against the economic necessity of having immigrant labor in this country?
We're working on policies right now within the White House, and you heard President Trump just recently talk about farmers and hospitality industry and other industries. Department of Labor is working with Department of State and, Department of Agriculture. And they're developing plans. And the final plans aren't out, and I'm not going to get ahead of the president on this, but a lot of people are working on, various possible policies. I'm not going to get ahead of the president on this. The president understands economics better than many presidents have understood it. And we had the best economy in the nation's history under Trump 45. And I think we'll get there in 47. So he's aware of it, and we got the greatest minds in the administration working on it.
I mean, you've been around this for a long time. You probably could have predicted the complaints from some of the industry folks. Why wasn't there a carve out to begin with for like agriculture and hospitality?
Look, I think American people voted President Trump into office to enforce immigration laws to this country. That's what we're doing. You got to understand, first of all, it's illegal to knowingly hire an illegal alien, right? No one hires an illegal alien out of goodness of their heart. They hire them because they can work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition with U.S. citizen employees. I've seen it throughout my career. There are companies that have U.S. citizen employees that pay a certain hourly rate, labor rate. Then another company brings illegal aliens in, they'll pay them less. And guess what? The company pays more payroll, they can't win contracts. They can't win jobs because they can't compete against companies that have less overhead than they do. And many, many illegal aliens do not pay taxes. They're paid under the table. The employer don't pay employee taxes. They don't pay unemployment insurance. So they're cheating the system. So, again, Department of Labor, Department of State, Department of Agriculture, all these people are getting together and talking about it now. But I don't think we ever give a green light to knowingly breaking immigration law. That's not the message we want to send to the world.
Well, I mean, yeah, should those companies though get carve-outs then? Like, should you be rewarding companies for hiring cheaper illegal labor rather than paying Americans a living wage?
I'm not going to get to the president what policy they come up with, but it's illegal to knowingly hire an illegal alien. It's a violation of federal law, and it's not okay. So we'll see what comes out of these discussions, but it's the law's the law, and we'll see what comes out of the discussion. But I can tell you this: I read a lot of media about there's amnesty. There's going to be no amnesty, but we'll let the policy advisors work on it.
I mean, this is a tough needle to thread for you guys because really, whatever you call it, a touchback program like worker carve-outs, MAGA is going to see this as amnesty. So how do you thread that needle? And does bringing the base along here?
There will be no amnesty. I'm just telling you again, the president's leading the change on this or leading the discussion on this, and we'll see what comes out of it.
How do you bring the base along, though, on whatever change it is, if it's softer on immigration?
What you need to understand is immigration enforcement has always been controversial. It's always been emotional. My whole career. Now, I've seen a lot of terrible things. Everybody has an opinion on immigration. But if they don't know what we know, they don't know what I know. They don't know there's no such thing as innocent illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. These people go through hell getting here. Many spend years paying off their smuggling fees. They're abused through the process. And, we're a nation of laws. We'll enforce the laws. So again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this because this discussion is just starting. We got the best minds in the government with decades of experience on immigration, policy, immigration enforcement, border security, all getting together and developing policies that make sense for this country. And I got total faith in the president that he's going to come out with the right recipe on all this.
How do you engage with other cabinet members, though, folks like Brooke Rollins, who do have different priorities? Like for her, it's representing interests of farmers and agriculture groups. Like what is that push and pull like in the room?
I would rather have a room full of different opinions and everybody coming in and just being a yes man, a yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes sir. Everybody in this administration, I actually think is a very talented administration with decades of experience. I think is great and beneficial. When you get into a room, you have all this different opinions and experiences. Because look, I've been doing this a long time. All the ideas I come up with, they have not all been mine. I've sat in meetings and heard and had someone bring something up. I said, I never thought about that. Yeah, that makes some sense. Let's talk more about that. So having these people in the room with different opinions and different life experiences, I think it's beneficial because I think you come up with a policy that makes more sense and the American people can accept.
Well, and we know that President Trump really likes to listen to a broad swath of people, take in a lot of views and opinions. We know one of the folks that has been talking to the president about this is Joe Rogan. He's pushed Trump to back off deporting workers who haven't committed crimes. I mean, should he be listening to Rogan or should he be listening to his base and folks like you on this?
I think President Trump's the president of the United States. He's going to listen to everybody and form a decision. But, people say don't arrest workers. They don't understand the whole ugly underbelly of illegal immigration the way I do. They have not worked the border. They have not investigated organizations that move these workers in. They have not investigated forced labor trafficking. They have not investigated forced sex trafficking. They have not investigated workers, employers who pay the aliens less, keep part of their paycheck, charge them for room and board. Women that are sex trafficking in the massage parlor are locked inside the massage parlor, not free to go. Their identifications locked in a safe. They're abused. People need to understand the whole world of illegal immigration before they form an opinion, because they don't know, for instance, what I know, what I've seen. So
is that the kind of message, or are those the stories that you're telling the president as he's trying to figure out what to do about immigrant labor?
The president and me talk often, and I talk about my experiences, good and bad. Look, again, I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I've seen hundreds of policies come and go. I've seen what policies work. I see what policies didn't. For instance, the last Amnesty, IRCA, Immigration Reform and Control Act, right? Didn't work the way we planned it. They said, we're going to give an amnesty. I'm to come find out up to 80% of the soft fraud applications, special agricultural worker program, were fraudulent. We're supposed to have a contingent of worksite enforcement personnel to hold employers accountable. Never got the funding to do that. So I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of policies. Yeah, I give my opinion to the president. He asked my opinion a lot.
Are you cautioning him to be wary of some of these worker carve-outs, given your experience?
I'm not going to comment on the specific discussion I have with the president. He asked my opinion. I base my opinion on my experience. Criminal investigations I've done, immigration policies I've written, immigration standards I've been involved with. So I give him 40 years of experience. Here's what I've seen. And he's the president of the United States. He makes the ultimate decision.
And you've executed under a number of administrations, whether you agree or not. Supposedly, I would think that the money that you're getting and the additional resources, some of that would go down to one of the more difficult tasks, which is tracking people down for deportation. You've talked about your desire to use...
A lot of money is going to do is help find these missing children. Right? Now, we've already found 10,000 of these missing children. I think not everything we're doing is what people call controversial. I mean, there's over 300,000 children that were released to unvetted, sponsored by my administration. They couldn't find them. They did a call-in or a report. They couldn't find them. And some of these children are found safe with family members. I can tell you, many we found in sex trafficking, many we found in forced labor. So some of that money is going to be helping to rescue these children. And, some of that money is going to build border wall. Border wall works. People say, well, border wall is a bad thing. Do they realize every place we build a border wall, a border barrier, illegal immigration went down, illegal drug flow went down. But what people don't talk about is border walls save lives. Women and children, the most vulnerable, can't get over that wall. That means they go to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? The men and women of the border troops will take care of the humanitarian needs right away. So, President Trump right now is the most secure border in a lifetime. He's saving thousands of lives. When illegal immigration is down 96%, you've seen the studies, I'm sure, you're a journalist. There are studies out there that say that 31% of women that make that journey admitted to being sexually assaulted making that journey.
That's
so
awful.
When we got 96% decrease in people coming, when 96% less people are coming, how many women are being raped? How many children aren't drowning in the river or dying in the desert? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked? How many pounds of fentanyl isn't getting into killing Americans? Fentanyl seizures right now are down over 50%. How many no-inspected terrorists aren't sneaking in? Secure border saves lives. And so we got the border. So we got the border locked down to the highest level ever. We still got some more work to do. But now we need to deal with the mess that Joe Biden created. That millions of people in this country that weren't properly vetted. Secretary of America stood there constantly saying the people released are properly vetted. How do you vet somebody from China when you know China's not going to share national security information with you? How do you vet people from El Salvador when El Salvador has no NCIC? Just yesterday, we arrested somebody who was wanted for murder in El Salvador. The Biden administration allowed in, said he was properly vetted. No, he was wanted for murder in his home country. So how'd that vetting go? So what we're doing right now was concentrate on the worst and worst, and we'll continue doing that. And this money is going to help us do it better, faster, more efficient, and get them out of the country quicker.
One of the things with the level of work and the ramping up that you're trying to do that could be a challenge is the workload for ICE officers. I mean, there's new reporting from the Atlantic that there's discontent within ICE right now. Some of the agents are kind of overwhelmed by the idea of how many deportations you want to do, the diversion of resources into new areas of work. How do you boost morale among ICE agents?
I think morale's high, highest ever been. But are they overworked? Yeah, they're working very, very hard. And there's over 20 million illegal aliens in this country. We got less than 5,000 deportation officers. These men and women are working very hard, and they're working 7 days a week. But this is why the big beautiful bill is important. Now we're going to give them some help. We'll be hiring more contractors to do transportation, so agents aren't doing transportation. We have more contractors to do administrative keystrokes, and whether it's travel documents or detention or call-ins. It doesn't require a badge and gun to do call-ins. People report in because they're released on ATD, alternatives to detention. Contracts can do that work. Let's put the badge and guns on the street. I think we won't see some relief pretty quick. That's where we bring resources on, bring more contracts on. We got a retention bonus for officers, understanding they none of them are getting rich. They don't get paid a lot of money, but we got a retention bonus. We got signing bonuses for new incoming. So we'll address the morale issue, which I don't think is a huge issue. But look, I've been around 40 years. ICE has 20,000 people. You're never going to make 20,000 people happy. Someone's going to be happy. Why am I sitting in a jail, working in a jail when I could be out in fugitive operation working the streets? There's always going to be some frustration. But I think what the president's doing with this big, beautiful bill, the money and resources we got coming to the game, I think it's going to address that employee morale.
Some of the agents also said that they were frustrated by the diverting of resources from human trafficking to deportations. What's your response to that?
There's been no decrease in human trafficking investigations. That's a big part of what we're doing. We have investigated many trafficking organizations. Look, I just explained. We've already found over 10,000 kids who are trafficking in this country. Human trafficking has not taken a backseat to anything.
Even though resources are stretched thin, I mean, you have to prioritize. If you're prioritizing deportations, doesn't that mean that some other things like child exploitation and trafficking?
Human trafficking investigation leads to a lot of deportations. We're looking at human trafficking as a way to find these people that were trafficking in the country, which leads to more deportations. There's still a large quadrant of HSI working drug investigations, firearms smuggling investigations. But yeah, some HSI resources have been diverted to the interior enforcement operation. But it's necessary. This is a priority of this administration. And our job is to work within the framework of the administration. I work with President Obama. My job under Obama is work within the framework provided me by the administration. I may not have to agree to it, but that's a framework provided me. I can tell you right now, you compare the morale under Biden administration of the Border Patrol and ICE compared to now, not even close. We had record numbers of retirements and resignations in the Border Patrol like we've never seen before under Biden. We had record number of retirements and resignations under ICE. Last month, Border Patrol hit a record on recruiting, a record, never seen before, numbers like they've never seen. ICE, we got thousands of people wanting to come out of retirement and come back. So is there a morale issue? There's always going to be some sort of morale issue because you can't satisfy everybody, but you can't even compare the morale now to the Biden administration. Morale is much, much higher.
I do want to talk about some of the tactics for ramping up this operation that you're talking about. You've talked about wanting to use enhanced data targeting to track down deportation candidates. What does that mean? Like, what kind of data are you looking at? How's that going to work?
We have our system, law enforcement systems that we use to help track people. I'm not going to get into specifics how that operates because that's law enforcement sensitive, but it's like anything else. The same way FBI finds people, the DEA finds people. We have systems, very modern systems, IT systems that help us find people. And we need more of it. I mean, one of the things that Big Beautiful is going to do is bring more of these smart companies in to help us do this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, does this overlap with some of the reporting around bringing on Palantir to help with that?
I know Palantir was at the table. A lot of companies are coming to the table saying, look at what we have and see if that can help you. Those discussions being held by the components are being held by ICE, CBPs having their own discussions. I don't get involved with contract negotiations. I've recused myself from that because I used to have my own company. So I recuse myself from any contract discussions. But there are a lot of companies out there coming to the table at CBP, at ICE, at Immigration Court, at the White House that want to help us. But I don't get involved with them. But there's a lot of companies looking to do business with the government. And a lot of these companies have really, really impressive technology that is far beyond what it ever was when I was an agent.
What do you say to U.S. citizens, though, who are concerned that handing off surveillance tactics to private companies might cause some privacy concerns?
They don't do any surveillance. They provide us data, and we take the data and we conduct the surveillance. And it's for criminal cases. We use a lot of this data just for criminal cases.
What are some of the other ways to sort of try to track down this large amount of people in the interior? Like, are you asking U.S. citizens for help trying to identify who's here illegally?
We got a record number of reports coming to the ICE hotline, DHS hotline. We got a record number of referrals. We get referrals from citizens every day. The mail here at the White House to me, I would say 75% of it is people reporting employed with illegal aliens, or reporting a smuggling organization working in their neighborhood, or a criminal gang in their neighborhood. And so American citizens, they're fed up what happened the last 4 years in this country, and many are stepping up. They want to help make this country safe again. They believe a secure border makes sense. They believe taking criminals off the streets makes sense.
Do you worry about what that does to communities, though? Like maybe creating more of a climate of fear than you would want?
No, why would I? I mean, every citizen will call a local police. If there's something going on in your next door neighbor that's causing a danger in the community, you're going to call the police. We're no different. We're federal law enforcement officers. I want American citizens to call and say, there is an alien gang working this neighborhood. And they're robbing citizens, or they're threatening businesses to pay a protection fee, or they're engaged in prostitution or sex trafficking. They're running a brothel down the street. No, we want those types of phone calls. We're no different than the local police officer. United States citizens should have the right to report crime to make their community safer. I applaud that.
You've talked about obstacles and bottlenecks. A lot of the time, one of the bottlenecks to speeding up deportations is the courts, is due process and going through all of those steps. The courts have repeatedly faulted the administration for trying to cut some of those due process corners. Do you consider due process important, or is it better to move quickly and make some mistakes? Like, what's the right balance there?
Everybody we've deported had due process, but there's different levels of due process. If it's a Title 8 apprehension, they're making a claim from the immigration judge, they have due process at a higher level. If they're an Alien Enemies Act, enemy of the United States, if they're a designated terrorist organization, they don't get the level of due process Title 8 does. That's the way the law is written. I didn't write the law. President Trump didn't write the law. Congress wrote the Alien Enemies Act, and we follow that Alien Enemies Act. I know that's under litigation. I can't get in real deep, but everybody's removed has some level of due process. Some get more than others. There's a thing called expedited removal. If you enter the country in the last so many days, and you're within so many miles of the border, you get an expedited removal. But if you've been in the country 20 years, you're not eligible for expedited removal. So there's different levels of due process depending on who the person is and what the situation, the specifics around that case. So I truly believe everybody's been given a level of due process as lined out in the statute by Congress and federal law.
We've seen, these raids play out in cities like LA. We saw the use of the military to accompany ICE raids. Do you think that's important? And are we going to see that expand to other cities?
I think the military is out to help protect property and life. The assault on ICE officers up over 700%, and they're there to support the men and women's rights. They're not enforcing immigration law. They're there to protect property and life. And right now, with the rhetoric going on between representatives on the Hill and these NGO groups, these open borders groups, our officers need extra protection, and I'm glad they're there. I was in LA when the riot started, and when the National Guard rolled in, it was to protect millions of dollars of federal property and protect officers' lives. I thought it was a great decision by President Trump. And we got to remember, the riot started in LA over this whole false story of immigration raid. I was there. We were serving 3 criminal search warrants as part of a big criminal investigation into money laundering, customs fraud, and wire fraud. And we're serving criminal arrest warrants, search warrants signed by a United States federal judge. Right away, the media and everybody in these open borders groups said, it's an immigration raid. They're looking for people that look different from them. It's just a false narrative from the beginning, and it caused a riot. But The president's decision to have the military engage the National Guard was a great decision, because I tell you right now, if he wouldn't have done it, LA would be in a lot worse shape today than it is.
We've seen some arrests of local and state officials who have been getting in the way of ICE, of some of these enforcement policies. There is resistance, and especially in a lot of these blue cities. Like, how far are you willing to go to tamp down that resistance from local and state officials?
If they cross the line, they get arrested. I mean, I've been clear from day one. They can hate ICE. Shame on them, because the men and women of ICE are making this country safer every day. They can disagree with our policies. You have that right. You can protest. You have your First Amendment rights, but you can't cross that line. And I've said that from day one. You can't knowingly impede a federal law enforcement officer. That's a felony. You can't knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE. That's a felony. And you certainly can't put hands on an ICE officer. So when you cross the line, I don't care who you are. For 4 years, all we heard is President Trump, no one's above the law, including President Trump. Well, guess what? Members of Congress aren't above the law either. Either are judges who sneak an alien out the back door and commit impediment. I applaud people that want to protest. You got the right. I had 1,000 protesters at my house. Have at it. You can show up at my house and protest. You're not going to change what I'm doing or who I am, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue doing this job. But you can't cross that line. That's the message we're trying to send. But with the rhetoric coming from members of Congress, senators and congressmen, comparing ICE to terrorists, Nazis, calling them the Gestapo. When members of Congress do that openly, then you got these nuts out in the community says, okay, well, if a member of Congress can attack them, that just gives me more. Now I'm emboldened. I can take action against ICE. That we saw what happened in Alvarado with armed incursion. What happened when a guy went to the Border Patrol facility in Texas and started shooting up the building. This rhetoric emboldens people to take violent actions. And I said for 2 months, and the media called me a fear monger, and I was making threats. The rhetoric doesn't tap down. Lives are going to be lost. Because I've seen this play out before in my 40 years, and it happened. I wish it didn't happen. I wish I was wrong. And I don't think it's over until the people on the Hill stop the hateful rhetoric. The ICE officers are enforcing the laws they enacted. ICE isn't making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress. So any member of Congress saying, you're a racist for enforcing the law that we enacted. If we're a racist for enforcing law that they enacted, what's that make them? They wrote the law. And they appropriate us by funding to enforce the law. And what people need to remember, a lot of ICE agents out there making these arrests, they're going out there with an order of removal issued by a federal judge. So they're executing orders issued by a federal judge. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress, using the funding Congress gave them to enforce the law. But members of Congress want to call them the Gestapo, Hitler. It's disgusting what's going on.
I think one of the things that's had a lot of folks up in arms is that ICE agents, unlike other law enforcement, have been masked to protect their identities. That's not something that we've really had on this scale in this country. Do you?
Well, we never have the scale of attacks on ICE. We have now up 700% attacks on ICE. Doxing against ICE agents.
Well, you've had increased attacks on police officers as well in the wake of the defund the police movement too, but they haven't put masks on.
You name a police agency that has a 700% increase on assaults. Name one.
I haven't looked at that data, yeah.
You won't find one. The attacks on ICE is unprecedented, 700% increase. And we're not even talking about the doxing of agents, their spouses, and their children. So they're wearing masks to help give them some sort of protection. But the same people that are complaining about ICE wearing masks, have they ever said anything about BLM protesters wearing masks?
Well, I mean, that leads me to the question that, do you have concerns that
Let me answer, though. Let me answer.
Yeah, okay.
Have they ever say anything about the mass protesters that became criminals on college campuses that threatened Jewish students and took over buildings, destroyed property? They were all wearing masks. Did anybody pass legislation saying they can't wear a mask during a protest? No. We're talking about law enforcement.
I think there are a lot of people who are upset about that. But then,
have you seen any legislation proposed to remove masks from protesters that become criminals, that take over college campuses? You haven't. Look at the BLM protesters, how many lives were lost, how much property was stolen. They're all wearing masks. Did anybody propose legislation saying it's illegal to wear a mask in public while you're protesting? No, there isn't. This is attacking ICE officers. The Democrats want to vilify men and women of ICE and Border Patrol. And I said from day one, when President Trump won office and I came back and said, now the vilification starts. Right now, it's the racist ICE, the racist Border Patrol for simply enforcing the law to deal with the repercussions of Biden administration's open borders, where millions of criminals and public safety threats were released in this country. So I support ICE wearing masks. You're still wearing insignia. You got an HSI, ERO, or FBI, DEA, but there needs to be some level of protection because the tax is unprecedented. 700%, for God's sake. And what I want to remind people is, I was an ICE agent. These men and women at ICE, they're mothers and fathers too. They don't hang their heart on a hook every day and they come to work. They're not the beast. They're enforcing a law. They're trying to make this country safe again, and they're being vilified for it and attacked for it. And we're not going to tolerate it. Zero tolerance on this.
You said before, immigration enforcement gets people really emotional on both sides of the aisle in different ways. We've seen a ton of videos of these ICE raids come out from you guys. What do you see as the benefit to filming the raids? Like, who are these videos for? What are you hoping Americans get out of these videos? How do you want them to respond?
Look, I said from day one, we're going to be transparent. So whether we're taking the videos or someone's taking the video on a cell phone, I mean, American people need to know what we're up against. What I don't like, though, is they misrepresent what's happening. They video somebody and they see, a struggle going on. Okay, you got an ICE agent beating somebody up. But they won't show you the video 5 seconds before that where they're attacking the ICE officer. A lot of the media is just simply dishonest. And I know. I've done interviews where my interview is so spliced up at the end, I'm saying things I wouldn't say. And I saw videos where the video's been cut. I want to be transparent as much as possible. I promised that from day one. We'll be transparent. And that's why we let media go on these ride-alongs with us to show the American people. And we don't pay favors. I've been on media ride-alongs with, I think, just about every network. And we want them to be there. I just want to be honest.
And there's stuff that you guys are putting out too. I mean, beyond transparency, is there a messaging element? Are you trying to say something either to the American people or to the undocumented immigrants in the country?
The message we're saying is we're going to enforce the immigration law. That's our job. That's what American people voted for. And all the hate and attacks on ICE and Border Patrol is not going to make us go away. What happened in LA? We had 100 teams on the street the day of the beginning of the protest. We got 100 teams on the street today. We're not going away. We're going to enforce this law.
You talked about self-deportation in the CBP Home app. Do you guys have numbers in terms of how many people have self-deported?
As far as overall people that left the country, several groups have done a study says over 1 million already have left on their own. But who went through the CBP app? I don't want to give a number because I'm not sure about it. I have to get back to you on that. It's in the thousands, but I just don't know what the number is.
Has the government done anything to sort of make it easier for those folks to facilitate them getting out of here?
If you go to CBP One, sign up. We'll work with you. We'll give you time to get your affairs in order, and we'll make arrangements for a flight, either one of our charter flights or commercial flight, and we'll even give you a stipend when you get home to help you get started. Secretary Noem was out to the Central American countries just recently working with them, and what sort of welcome will they get? Will they be able to be placed with, workforce companies to place them in a job? So all that stuff's being worked on the back end, not only by DHS, by the State Department. We're trying to make it so when they get home, we'll give them a stipend, $1,000. But we also want to go beyond that and make sure the government's working on placing them in available employment. And so that's all going on behind the scenes. I'm not involved in that, but a lot of groups are working that, and that's ongoing.
One thing that the administration has been fighting is with the courts on whether they can deport people who enter the country illegally to countries other than their home nations. In the cases of individuals who have been sent to South Sudan, for example, recently, what happens to them now that they're there? Are they still considered to be in U.S. custody, or is it now totally up to South Sudan what happens to them?
They're free. As far as we're concerned, they're free. And
what does that mean?
We're working with those government. They're no longer in our custody. They're living in Sudan. And will they stay in Sudan? I don't know. I mean, but we work with, when we sign these agreements with all these countries, we make arrangements to make sure these countries are receiving these people and there's opportunities for these people. But I can't tell you if we remove somebody to Sudan, they can stay there a week and leave.
Do you know, are they being detained there? Are they in jail, or are they, walking around looking to build a life in South Sudan or going wherever they want to go to from there?
I don't know specifics of the case. I know if they land in Sudan, they're public safety threat. I'm sure Sudan is, looking at their case and find out what action they want to take. But there's like 100 different endings to this. I just don't know on every specific case what their status is.
For the folks in South Sudan, though, do you know if they're being detained there or not?
I do not know.
Okay. You've been given the green light from the Supreme Court now to do this. How important are these third country deportations going to be to your agenda, given there are countries that aren't willing to take their people back?
Well, they're very important, and we got to remember they're very important. We got to remember third country placements is not new. We did it under the Biden administration. We did it under the Obama administration. I was there. I mean, when you got countries that won't take their nationals back, and they can't stay here, we find another country willing to accept them. And we've done that for decades. We're doing more of it now because you got more countries stepping up, like Venezuela is pushing back, and other countries that are don't want the nationals back. So if they're a significant public safety threat or national security threat, there's one thing for sure: they're not walking the streets of this country. We'll find a third safe nation to send them to, and we're doing it.
Would you say, though, that you're doing it on a larger scale, or you want to do it on a larger scale than other administrations?
Yes. If we have to, we got to make it available. There are discussions going on with many countries right now, talking about possibility of third country placements, and those discussions are going on now.
What are some of the other countries you're looking to make deals with?
Not going to talk about
Not
it.
ready?
I'm not giving, until we get a signed agreement. I'm going to give them credit.
But you are expecting more deals like what you have with El Salvador and South Sudan.
I hope we do, and not that we're going to use them, but to have them in place available. It's not, planning ahead. I wish we didn't have to use any of them. But if this guy can't stay here and he's a public safety threat, he can't stay here.
Is it only people you deem public safety threats that you're sending to other countries, or are there other deportees?
Again, that's the decision made by ICE. I'm not involved with everyone, but I'm sure the vast majority are public safety threats or national security threats, if not all of them. That's the number one reason why we look for third safe country, because the country won't take them back. Now, are they all criminals? I hesitate to say all are criminals, but this person been ordered removed from the United States. Let's say he's from country Homan, and Homan don't want him. Well, he's been ordered removed from the United States. We'll find other countries that want to take him. Once
they get to that other country, I mean, you said you're not sure what is the situation with the people in South Sudan. Is the U.S. government keeping track of what happens to them once they get to that other country, or are we just done with them then?
State Department's involved. That'd be a question for the State Department.
Okay.
State Department tracks all of this.
Big picture, just taking a step back. You're just over 6 months in, right? What are the lessons you've learned so far, and how are you applying those lessons going forward?
The lessons learned is I never thought the false rhetoric being pushed by the left would get to this level. It's incredible. I mean, the false stories being put out there. I mean, ICE agents are raiding elementary schools. ICE agents are raiding churches. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it's just the more and more stories I read, it's just incredible. ICE is disappearing people. What the hell does that mean? We're arresting people in the country illegally and deporting them, but they call it disappearing them. Again, let's put a negative spin on all this stuff. I knew ICE would be vilified along with Border Patrol, but I didn't think it'd be this organized, where we got armed people showing up at an ICE facility to ambush federal law enforcement officers. We're at a place right now where the left has lost their minds, and it's okay to kill a federal law enforcement officer because they're the bad guy. But the ones who broke the law...
I don't think anyone's saying it's okay.
No, there's a lot of groups that think it is. You got to go to X, go to social media and see. I see it. I see threats against...
Mr. Homan, I don't think either party would want to be judged by what their people are saying online.
Look, I get death threats every day that people want to kill me. There are actually people who want to kill ICE agents. You see it on social media every day, and the FBI and ICE takes immediate action to find these people, but there are people out there. I'm not blaming this on the Democratic Party. They want to see ICE agents killed. What their rhetoric causes people who are unstable to take this kind of actions. A group of armed people showed up at a detention facility to ambush ICE officers, and one officer was shot in the neck. We had a person show up at a Border Patrol facility with a weapon, shooting the office, trying to shoot agents, and unfortunately, they had to kill him. But it's what you asked what the lessons learned. Lessons learned is I would never imagine that the rhetoric got so bad that we're seeing things like this happen right now.
No doubt this is an issue that gets hyper politicized and gets super partisan. On the politics of this, though, do you think that there's a world in which this is a policy that a lot of people that caused a lot of people to support President Trump? They felt like Democrats weren't doing enough on this issue, right? But there has been polling that shows that some of the images that we've been seeing coming out of some of these cities, some of the videos of the raids, some of the folks that are getting rounded up from from restaurants, from farms, from hospitality. There is a little bit of backlash brewing. Do you worry that this could flip to be politically beneficial to Democrats? With Gavin Newsom's out there saying, "Go ahead, come arrest me." He thinks it's going to be good for him politically.
Well, look, I think a lot of the polling is based on false narrative of ICE, raiding elementary schools, raiding churches, and arresting a grandmother that has
Right,
cancer.
but like the messaging matters, right? And if Democratic rhetoric can win
Bottom
people
line
over.
bottom line is, if they want less collateral arrests, then let us into jail. Let us arrest the bad guy in the safety and security of a county jail, where we're not forced to go in the community. Because when we go in the community, many times we'll find that bad guy, but many times he's with others. Others in the United States illegally, they're coming too. We're not turning a blind eye to we're not going to tell ICE officers, ignore the
Well, do you think there's a world in which that like reflects poorly on the Trump administration?
To arrest public safety threats? No. To arrest other illegal aliens found with a public safety threat? No. They forced us in that position. Let us in the jail. So sanctuary cities want to keep saying, and Gavin Newsom, they're arresting non-criminals, they're arresting. Then Gavin, let us in your jail. Let us arrest the bad guy in the safety and security of a county jail, which is safer for the community, safer for the agent, safer for the alien, but you won't do it. But when you release them in the street, we got to go find them. We're not arresting people. Now you're complaining we're arresting people. Give us access to your taxpayer-funded jail. Rather than releasing a public safety threat back in the public, which is plain stupid, let us have access to that guy in the jail. Safer for everybody. More agents in the jail means less agents in the street. More agents in the jail means less collateral arrest. The math is simple.
And finally, sir, the national emergency, the immigration crisis that the president has declared, is there a metric for when the administration will declare this over, or do you think this is going to be perpetual and long term?
No, that's I'm not getting ahead of the president. That's his call. But when we got 600,000 illegal alien public safety threats and national security threats walking the streets of this nation, that's an emergency.
Thank you so much, Mr. Homan, for joining the conversation. We appreciate you.
You got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Tom Homan for joining the conversation. Now, today is a pretty grim anniversary. It marks 1 year since the attempted assassination of then-candidate Trump. It's a day that I personally will never forget. I was there in Butler, Pennsylvania when it happened. I was on the press riser covering the rally when those shots rang out, and so much changed for so many of us. Now there's a new book out about that day and everything that followed. It's called Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump and the Fight for America's Heartland. It's by a journalist named Salena Zito. She's a Pennsylvania native. She's covered politics forever. And Selena and I have spent many a long day together at Trump rallies, at all sorts of campaign events. And she was there with me on July 13th, 2024. In fact, I remember seeing her early that day. She told me she had an interview with President Trump, which meant that when those shots rang out, Selena was right there, right in front of the stage, mere feet from the president. Selena Zito picks up the story from there.
So we go sort of off to the side. We're standing at this point, and I'm 5 feet away from him. I'm right at the edge of the stage. And he does two things that he never does. He asked for a chart to come down. And I remember turning to my daughter, Shannon, and saying, what, is he Ross Perot? Why does he have a chart?
I did the exact same thing, Selena. I said to my producer, A, he doesn't use like visuals that often. And B, when he does, they're much later in his speech. He never puts up a chart that early. And I was like, wow, this is really early for the chart.
Yep, that chart goes down. He turns his neck, and that's when I hear the first shots.
What's running through your mind?
Well, I'm a gun owner, so I know immediately it's gunshots. I hear some people saying, "Well, why is there firecrackers?" I know immediately it's gunshots. I see him grab his ear, and I see a streak of blood across his face. And I'm watching him. I'm not taking my eyes off of him. And I remember watching him take himself down. He doesn't fall down. And I remember thinking, okay, he may not be gravely injured, but I know he's injured. I see the blood. And then I see a sea of blue go around him. And then there's the second 4 shots. And I remember thinking the podium is not going to protect him because he went down behind the podium. Those shots were clearly going over him. And I remember thinking, please don't let anybody be hurt.
I remember him talking about his shoes. I thought that was so interesting that he was like, I need my shoes. And then he gets up and does the fist and the fight. And that's when I was getting back up on the podium, which is crazy in hindsight because none of us knew at that point whether the shooter was down or what was going on. But we were like, okay, we got to start reporting.
Yeah, we're witnesses to history, right? That's how I thought of myself. And I remember thinking, I have a job to do. I have a job to do, and I have to do it.
So you were supposed to have the interview right after the rally. Obviously, that didn't happen, but you did end up having either his first or one of his very first interviews after the assassination attempt when he was talking to press again. What was he like in those moments in the 24 hours or so afterwards? And what did you learn, not just in what he said, but in how he said it in that time you had shortly after this tragedy?
So he calls me first thing in the morning the next day. And he says, Selena, this is President Donald Trump. Like, I don't know it's him, right? It's a very distinctive voice. He said, I wanted to know if you're okay, and I'm really sorry we didn't get to do that interview. And I said, I did something. My parents are going to be so upset when they find this out. But I did something I don't normally do, and I swore like a truck driver. And
very Pittsburgh of you.
Yes. I said, are you bleeping kidding me? Except I didn't use bleep. I'm like, you've just been shot. And you're asking about me? That happened 7 times. He called me 7 times that day.
Wow.
I think why he called me was, well, first of all, I've covered him for years. He knows me. And trust me, he's been mad at me too. It's not like it's a perfect relationship.
Sure.
But he knows me. But also, I think, when you go through a traumatic, tragic event and you're trying to explain it to your friend, your family, your spouse, they can nod and be empathetic, but they haven't experienced it with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was looking for in our conversations. Right. Someone was there. And what did you think? What were you thinking? And he says, Selena, why did I turn my head? I never turned my head. Why did I put that chart down? Why did I make those decisions? I could have pressed him, but I didn't. I knew, and I had gone through a traumatic event too. I hadn't been shot, but, went right over my head. There's trauma there.
And let's remember, somebody did die. Corey Comparator was killed, and people were injured. I mean, this was a fatal shooting.
It was absolutely a fatal shooting. It is heavy on his mind. Corey is always on his mind. We talked about, he asked me, goes, do you think that was the hand of God? But I didn't answer him. I let him answer himself. And he said, it was a divine intervention. That was the hand of God. He said that means I have a newfound purpose. I have a purpose, and there's a reason why I didn't die in that moment. And I need to live up to that obligation. And he's joked later that nobody will believe me, like when I say this. But he said this. He said, I wasn't Donald Trump in that moment. I was a former president, possibly the next president. I represented the United States of America, which has always, to me, been a symbol of strength and resilience and resolve and exceptionalism. So I had an obligation to the people in the country to not cause chaos, for people to feel okay, that the country was going to be okay.
You wrote in your piece for the Washington Examiner the day after the shooting, you said, "What's clear to me after today is that if someone is determined to commit an act of political violence, they will find a way." I mean, we've seen, just in the last few months, in the last year, you're a Pennsylvanian, you know what happened with Governor Josh Shapiro and his house being set on fire, with the Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota. I mean, do you think that we are in an increasingly violent era of American politics? This used to be so shocking, but we're seeing these incidents.
Right. Well, as a student of history, we've always kind of had political violence. In my lifetime alone, I have seen JFK shot, Bobby Kennedy shot, Martin Luther King shot, George Wallace shot, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and other heinous acts of violence. And not in my lifetime. There have been violence in Congress. A guy caned another congressman.
I think, to me, what's been kind of unnerving is the condensed timeline. I mean, it feels like a bit of a pressure cooker in
Yeah.
just like the frequency in this short period of time.
Yeah. Oh, I don't disagree with you about that. And it's just shocking to watch it unfold, and you think it shouldn't happen, but as I wrote, it will happen. And we have to be very cognizant of that. What happened in Butler changed absolutely everything about this election. Absolutely everything. It changed people's perceptions of President Trump, and it grew the conservative populist coalition. And we don't want that kind of violence to repeat in this country. We want to do things to tap that down, not to incite that.
There was, and you write in your book about how Trump told you about all of the different calls he got from across the board, across political lines. Governor Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, had a pretty powerful moment in the aftermath of all of this, and you write about that too.
Yeah, one of the reoccurring themes in the book, when you read it, is the importance of place in American politics. It's a nuance that a lot of strategists and pollsters don't pick up on, that it impacts people and how they vote. Two of the people in this country that really get that are in the political spectrum, are Donald Trump, but it's also Josh Shapiro. The next day, Shapiro was at the Butler Farm Show complex. And he visited with the Compatore family. He goes out there and he talks about Corey in a way that was just so beautiful. And I remember thinking, in this moment, we're pretty blessed to have a governor that does something like that.
How do you think that experience changed President Trump in how he's actually doing the job today? Do you think it's still having an impact?
Absolutely. This is not a lame duck presidency. And he's running it as though he is boots on the ground, first day ever elected. And he's running at a speed like full force ahead. And that comes from what happened in Butler. And he told me that. He said, I was saved for a purpose and for a reason, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I lived up to that moment.
I wonder, Selena, like you personally, how did that day change you as a person and as a journalist?
I'm a person of faith, right? But faith is very important to me. So purpose is always important to me. But I understood more so in that moment that I had more purpose than just what I thought my purpose was, like to be a good mom, to be a good grandmother, to be a good, member of my community. It changed that because now I understood that I had an obligation or purpose to write this book. And not just that moment in Butler. People always tend to silo working class voters off in race, right? White working class, Black working class, Hispanic working class, whatever it may be. And I saw people, that silo sort of melting away. And I saw people more voting for community, like what's best for my community, what's best for my family, for my friends, and not as much on partisan politics, which galvanized them towards Trump, interestingly, because they saw him as someone that saw them.
And I think as much of a nightmare as I'm sure it was trying to write a book while covering a campaign and all the sleepless nights, I think the benefit to that is you were able to really see and track the connective tissue between all of these events, and particularly Butler, and how people and how we as a nation were processing all of this in real time in a really critical moment. Salena, thank you so much for joining me for this today. I cannot believe it's been a year.
Oh,
It seems so long ago, and then there are moments where I like close my eyes and it feels like yesterday.
yeah.
It really is remarkable. But I'm so glad you're my partner in this conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been The Conversation with Dasha Burns. We'll be back next week. And if you want to catch future episodes of The Conversation, click the subscribe button below. Thanks for watching.